when did the original, I think, interest in sustainability in general happen for you? Was that, university or as a child or adult?
No, no. As a child, so I grew up till I was 10, 11, in countryside, wine countryside, close to Porto. So I don't saw sustainability as something extrinsic to my own life because I lived surrounded by, the environmental world, the nature, crops and all those things. It just, you feel part of it. You don't see it as something you need to think outside of it. Then I moved to the center of Porto. I studied environmental engineering. And that was something around, I don't know, 1998, 1999, when I first started looking closely to the concept of sustainability, which is that back then it was mostly you make use of a resource without depleting it and leaving it either the same way you found it or even better for the future generations. And that of course made all the sense in the world to me, because if you very close to agricultural world or agricultural families as opposed to corporations, you know that the soil is your most important asset. And you need to keep it intact or better so that it actually can move forward to the next generation and they can live and prosper from it. Then in university, you start understanding that this is not only important for the families that are within agriculture, but that actually we don't need to care for the environment because we care for the environment. We are dependent on the environment to survive. And this was the biggest wake up call for me on sustainability, how that we actually do not need, the environment does not need us. We need the environment.
Right.
So we don't care for the environment as something that, it's a pet or a good cause. It's a very selfish cause. We need the environment to survive.
Yes. Yes.
And that, I was in university. It was quite a wake up.
It's also similar to something that Boz said, which is that if you look at the word agriculture, we've forgotten about the culture part. And I think that's what you were saying kind of in the beginning of, if you grow up with that as a part of your culture of, hey, this soil is important for us. We need this soil. We've had this for generations and we take care of it and we do this and that. And I think also similar to what, Valentina said is if you look at many, cultures in the world that are agricultural, cultures that they look at how do we coexist with, these animals and all these types of things. So you're right. And I think I was listening to one of these talks from Alan Watts, who I had a friend who's a big Alan Watts fan. And I'd never listened to any until a few days ago. And he was actually talking about Eco Zen. And in Eco Zen, he was saying that the biggest problem with the biggest modern opponent of sustainability, let's say, is that we see ourselves separate from the environment. And he's like, that's the biggest problem, is because we're not separate.
No, we're part of that system.
Yeah.
We're part of the ecosystem. We talk about ecosystems, but we are within. We're not outside. We are within and very much dependent on.
Yeah, definitely. But that's what we don't see anymore. We look at it as it's there for us to consume. Nature is there to be consumed and for our own need. And I'm not sure at what historical point, it got to where we were so, super egotistical that it's like all of existence is there to serve humankind because we're just supposedly so intelligent. But it does seem like that is the direction that we've kind of headed, is that everything is a resource now. It's, of course, things can be used as a resource, but I mean, it's nature, it's living, but yet we just think of them as resources now.
I'm not sure we didn't thought of things as a resource before. I think we just never saw the end of it, and now we are for the first time. So we're feeling threatened, and thank God we are, because we are threatened.
Yeah.
I think just before industrialization, the world of people was way smaller than it is today. We have access to so many data, and we're talking about data before we started the podcast. We're talking to so many data. We have access to so many different ways of experience lives, and we get access to recordings of history, how things happen in the past. We can make projections for the future. And I think maybe that's the biggest part. We were very dependent on ecosystems before. We felt on our skin how it was. So that's one difference.
What do you
And
mean by that? Can you explain that?
agricultural societies, you felt it on your daily life how it was to be dependent on nature.
Mm.
You could starve or not, and that was very much your life was dependent on it. Um, we made a lot of progress in our life. I don't want to trash on that because infant mortality is down. There's so many
There's all
beautiful
the
things that happened
factfulness stuff. Yeah.
in the last years. But we also removed ourselves very much from the equation of the world. We go to the supermarket, we buy meat and vegetables pre-packed, and we don't actually know, or worse, we don't feel, we don't recognize where that comes from and what kind of impact is having on us. So we lost the connection. While before we had no way to lose the connection, we were very, directly dependent on it. There's good and bad ways about it, but we definitely need to have a bit of a wake up call because we are being threatened. Our very own existence is being threatened. We're not threatening the environment. I don't believe we're threatening the environment. The environment will change. It will be better for some other species other than us. And I actually like living. So
Yeah.